Okay. So welcome everyone, our dear students, dear professors and dear guests. Today we are going to host Associate Professor Gülnur Ballice, Assistant Professor Eda Paykoç, and finally researcher Gizem Güler Nakıp. They are going to give us a presentation which is titled Revealing the Izmir Urban Memory Through the Mid-Century Karşıyaka Apartment Blocks and Interiors. Actually, and personally, I'm very excited about this presentation. I believe, all of us are going to learn so much about, specifically interiors in Izmir too. And before I leave the stage to the dear team, so firstly, I would like to introduce them a little bit. Maybe most of you know, their work through articles, through many research projects, but let me just briefly summarize. So I would like to start with Gülnur Hoca. Gülnur Hoca obtained her undergraduate, master's and PhD degrees from Department of Architecture, 9 Eylül University, Middle East Technical University, and 9 Eylül University again. She had worked in many architectural firms. She started her academic career as an instructor at Yaşar University and then appointed to assistant professorship. Also, she had held the position of department head for a long time, and finally in 2016 she was promoted to associate professorship. She is now working as a full-time academician at Yaşar University. Her main research topics are urban transformation, urban renewal, urban identity, creative housing approaches, the history and the theory of modern architecture, interior architecture design, instructional methods in design studio, healthcare interiors, housing and culture. So let me continue with Eda Hoca. Eda Hoca received her bachelor degree in interior architecture and environmental design from Bilkent University, and then she worked in a project which is called Campus for All in Hacettepe University. After that, she completed her graduate degree from Bilkent University with the Master of Fine Arts thesis called Walking Patterns in Shopping Malls, the Case of Anka Mall. So in 2019, she received her PhD degree with the thesis called Analysis of Walkability Measurement Tools from Izmir Institute of Technology. So she worked as a research assistant at Bilkent University and after that Yaşar University. Now she's continuing as assistant professor in Yaşar University. She's also a member of 40 Design and Design History of Society, and her main research areas include walkability, walking and space, design for all, universal design, history of modern interiors, housing cultures, cultural sustainability, and design education. And finally, I would like to continue with Gizem Hoca. So she graduated from Yaşar University with a third degree in the department. After that, she completed her master's degree in Yaşar University again with her thesis called The Facade as an Urban, Architectural and Interior Element, Interpretation of Tangible and Intangible Values in Izmir Karşıyaka apartment buildings between 1950 and 1980. She worked as a research assistant at Yaşar University with a scholarship, and she's right now continuing her PhD education at the Silesian University of Technology Faculty of Architecture. And about her main research areas, it includes architecture, interior history and theory, modern housing culture, social sustainability, preservation of architectural, urban, cultural heritage. So I believe I have tried to summarize them. So now I'm going to leave the stage to the dearest team. Thank you all for just accepting our invitation. So in terms of ArchiDesign talks.
Thank you, Hande Hocam. And thank you for your invitation again. Today, we will present our research project, and we shared the presentation between us. I will start the presentation with the general information about the research project. Then Eda Hoca and Gizem will continue to be able to give the other details of the project. First of all, I have to mention that this presentation is related to the scientific research project. We called it BAP 083. Spatial analysis of mid-century multi-story apartment blocks and transfer to virtual environment, Karşıyaka, Izmir, which is supported by Yaşar University Project Support Office. And today we would like to mention our completed scientific project. And various researchers, consultants, and students took part in the project, which started in December 2019 and ended in January 2022. And in this project, we aimed to draw attention to the mid-century multi-story apartment blocks in Izmir, to identify apartment buildings belonging to the determined period and region, to research, document, analyze from different perspectives, and to revive the interiors and architectural elements that reflect the codes of modernism with 3D visualization methods. And I want to mention about the project scope. In this slide, you can see the Izmir apartment buildings from different periods, which are located in Alsancak, Karşıyaka, and Hatay regions. Multi-story apartment blocks, which make up a large part of the urban fabric today, are an important cultural heritage that is neglected due to the fact that the conservation approach are limited to a certain period and building group. These residential buildings, which were produced in different periods and differ from each other in terms of typology and scale, convey to us the sheltering practices and living culture of the period in which they were built. Although there are studies focused on specific issues related to housing in Turkey, there are few studies that include the spatial analysis of mid-century multi-story houses and interior solutions and furniture. The fact that the buildings of this period are not registered, the administrators and the students do not have the awareness of the protection and the urban transformation law, cause these buildings to disappear rapidly. Here you see some examples, as I said, some examples from the 1560s period from different parts of the Izmir city. And in this project, we focused on the multi-story houses in the Karşıyaka, which have an important place in modern architectural debates and rapidly being destroyed today. In the project, we discussed the apartment buildings in the Aksoy and Donanmacı neighborhoods, which are regions where the transformation is very rapid and which contain the characteristic housing structures of the period. We determined the historical range of the research as 1950 and 1980, taking as reference the historical processes, breaking points, and developments that are thought to be important in apartment architecture. In the next slide, we will see the selected apartment blocks. In the case in the research project, we chose the buildings of Akif Kınay, Armağan Çağlayan, Cahit Akan, Faruk San, Kemal Türksenmez, Semih Aygın, and Ziya Nebioğlu, who produced quality apartments in Karşıyaka during this period. The selected apartment blocks are Paya, Erdoğan, Gökçeoğlu, Gediz, İpek, Çağlayan, Pıtrak, Dolunay, and Konak, which were built between 1950 and 1980. And I want to mention about the reasons for choosing Karşıyaka as the project area. We can list these reasons as follows. The lack of studies about housing architecture and interiors in this district. And the second reason is the limited studies on Karşıyaka housing architecture compared to the number of research produced for other regions in Izmir. And rapid transformation of the existing multi-story houses due to the effects of urban transformation law. Diversity of qualified apartment buildings that need to be documented and analyzed. And apart from these reasons, after we started the project, the earthquake in 2020 was also affected these rapid transformation. Specific criteria which are valid for all selected case study buildings are listed as follows. We selected the buildings according to these criteria. The first criteria is the having built in the period of 1950 and 80, as I said before, when the formation of a new multi-story house was intensified due to the change in the process of defining apartment houses as property housing in 1954 in the land registry law, and the flat ownership law enacted in 1965. And the second criteria is reflecting the characteristic architectural trends of the period. And the third one, having a different character in the general architectural pattern of the city. Being designed by leading architects of Izmir is another criteria. Being built with contemporary construction technologies. Being original in terms of interior design characteristics. Being unique in terms of materials, and being produced by an architect with its distinctive characteristics, contrary to the economic and political approach of this period, and having witnessed important urban and individual memory, leaving a trace in the architectural and public memory of the city. And the original contribution of the project is to reveal apartment buildings that have been ignored or neglected until today, and to ensure that they are documented by including interior spaces. Thus, awareness is created among the citizens and building producers, and it contributes to them acting more sensitively about the urban memory, which is rapidly disappearing with the urban transformation. And I want to mention about the methodology of the study a little bit. The method followed within the scope of the project consists of three main parts. These sections are research, documentation, and analysis. The research part is the stage of collecting data through extensive literature and archive scanning. The documentation part consists of periodic documentation, physical documentation, and oral history documentation. The analysis part is grouped under three main headings: facade, common areas, and interiors of the flats. In the facade analysis, we looked at the apartment nameplate, sunshades, openings, exterior door, windows, balcony shapes and balustrades, iron parts, lighting elements, facade materials. Apartment common areas and plan scheme analysis includes entrance doors, post boxes, stair rails, steps, elevators, common area furniture elements, and finishing materials. And flat interior space analysis, which is the hardest phase of the project, includes plan organization, wet areas like bathrooms, toilets, sanitary ware, and accessories, movable furniture, fixed furniture, which is kitchens, cabinets, separators, niche, and other furniture, finishing materials, lighting elements, and again accessories in the interior. And in the following slides, you will see some drawings and 3D visualizations here. We analyze the architectural and interior architectural features, architects, users, different actors involved in the construction process, and the urban texture of the selected apartment buildings. In addition, we evaluated the current status of the buildings and provided their documentation with different visualization methods. Apart from the photography technique, which is one of the main image-based techniques, we use 3D architectural modeling and visualization and rendering methods. Here you see some examples of these methods. And for a detailed study, we choose Rhino program, a CAD/CAM software designed for 3D modeling and prototyping. With Rhino, we completed detailed models of the exterior, interior, and furniture of the apartments selected within the scope of the project. We used Rhino rendered viewport and TV motion for visualization of architectural models. We prefer to produce it as a white model in order to make the buildings, furniture, and three-dimensional interiors more easily perceived by the audience. And within the scope of the project, oral history interviews were conducted with different people, such as flat owners, architects, architect relatives, furniture art painter, city planner, ceramic artists at different times. During these interviews, written, visual, and verbal information was obtained that would contribute to the project. And in this table, you can see the detailed information about the interviews. Most of them is coming from flat owners. Also, we reached some furniture firms and their child's relatives and architects. As I said, the childs of the architects and other people related with the interiors and architectural part of these apartment buildings. Now, I am giving the word to my colleague, Paykoç Özçelik, who is one of the researchers of this project. She will talk about website, a catalog, and social media accounts of the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Gülnur Hocam. Okay, as Gülnur Hocam mentioned, in this project, our main aim is to actually document and analyze the mid-century Karşıyaka apartment blocks and their interiors, but also making the outputs and the results widespread is one of the other targets. We made it possible to access all the data obtained through the website that we created, the e-catalog, social media accounts, and posters designed within the scope of this project. In addition to this, we aim to enable researchers and city users to access all data easily with various published and ongoing articles, international and national papers, book chapters, and theses. You can see the image of the website, our website entitled izmirkentbelleği.yaşar.edu.tr, which includes the detailed information about all analyzed apartments and flats. In the main page, for each apartment, there is general information, as you see, about the history of the apartment and its architect and the year that it is built. Under the first tab in our website, there is a project information, and there are sub-tabs as about the project team, contributors, and the resources. When we come to the second tab that is entitled as apartments, there is a specific page for each apartment, and we gave Paya apartments as a sample. Under these pages, there are detailed information for each apartment and its interior, detailed information about the architect of the apartment block, the photos, documents, and drawings about the apartment and the selected flat interiors. And if we have, we also include the oral history documentations. When we analyze the drawings part, There are both exterior photos from the apartment block and the common space of the apartment, both general and detailed photos of the interiors. Also, the 2D and the 3D architectural drawings that are produced by the research team to represent the selected apartment block and its interiors with all details are included. So this is one of our first outputs as the website. And also the catalog that is produced is also another important output of the project. It can be accepted as the academic publication, which includes all the information, and this is entitled as Konut Atlası, in English, Residential Atlas. This catalog can also be found in the last tab in our website in project outcomes in 2 different parts, because that it's a large file. We divide it into 2, so you can download it as 2 PDFs. And under this tab, you can also find the poster presentations and the academic publications produced from the project, and there is also on press part. I want to briefly introduce what catalog includes. Actually, the first chapter is reserved for the general introduction of the project, which is named as About the Project, Proje Hakkında. The chapters from 2 to 9 are reserved for each apartment separately. As you see, in these chapters, apartments are analyzed with the identity and the history of the building, facade analysis, analysis of apartment common spaces, and selected interior analysis. And the chapter 10 includes the literature review and all 2D and 3D drawings produced for each apartment and their interiors separately. In the last chapter, the resources that we used during the research can be found. We want to also give an example from each apartment, like an example again from Paya apartment. In the chapters which are created for each apartment, the welcoming page in the left-hand side above introduces the apartment with its general characteristics. And under the identity and the history of the building in the left-hand side below, its name, location, architect and designers, the known changes, current situation, and other important aspects, other characteristics are mentioned. In facade analysis, in the right-hand side top, balconies, iron parts, sun shading elements, and the exterior facade materials are analyzed. And when we come to the common spaces of apartments, it includes entrance doors, post boxes, balustrade, and the stairs, and it also includes the interior finishing materials. And we are continuing the content with the selected interior flat analysis, with the plan analysis, the wet spaces, and the furniture. Under chapter 10, the illustrations produced by the researchers and the plan drawings that are created can be seen. The website and the e-catalog are the main outputs, but we also designed and try to make it more visible to create social media accounts. And for increasing all accounts visibility, we created a Linktree link. I also shared it from the chat part. Linktree, İzmir Kent Ballice. The main social media accounts that took the best attention and interaction is our Instagram account, which is followed by Facebook, Pinterest, and Twitter accounts. In our Instagram account, the name is İzmir Kent Ballice. There is a continuing design language at the very beginning as the introduction to the account, which can be seen in the right part. And under the highlights, story highlights, the posts created for each apartment are also shared as a post and pinned. In its detail, for each apartment, there are 3 posts that are creating a whole when they come together in each row. And under each post, there are also textual information regarding the apartments and the interiors, general characteristics and properties. All apartment blocks that were studied can be found in our social media accounts. And when we come to our Twitter account, actually entitled as İzmir'in belleği. The 3 separate posts that are shared in Instagram are merged as a single post, and it keeps the same textual information, and there is a consistency. We also have a Facebook page that also have the same method with Twitter account, which is entitled as İzmir Kent Belleği. And our last social media account is Pinterest with the account name İzmir Kent Belleği. And you can find the same design language with other accounts. And the posts and the stories from each social media account are made simultaneously. And as I mentioned, I already shared the links from the chat part, and you are more than welcome if you want to follow us, if you are interested in. Now I'm giving the word to my colleague Gizem Güler Nakıp, and she will talk about the scientific research outputs, which are publications, poster presentations, conference proceedings, and thesis. Thank you.
Thank you, Eda Hocam. Within the scope of this scientific research project, we published various articles, book chapters, and conference proceedings with our research group. Now we will briefly talk about their titles, aims, and contents. Our article titled Turkey's Modern Housing Heritage, Apartment Buildings and Interiors in Izmir Karşıyaka has just been published. The aim of this paper is interpreting modern architecture through housing heritage and analyzing the architectural features, residential life proposals, and modernist design approach of 4 selected interior spaces from Karşıyaka, Donanmacı district. The analysis, which contains the facades and common areas of the apartments and plan schemes and interior features of the flats, has enabled the interpretation of design culture and the revival of apartment buildings as modern housing heritage values. The other article titled Documenting and Conserving Modern Architectural Heritage, Çağlayan Apartment Building, İzmir Karşıyaka, aims to put forward how heritage from a certain period can be documented, analyzed, and transferred using different digital techniques. Çağlayan Apartment Building from Karşıyaka, İzmir was selected as a case study for applying the digital documentation method. In conclusion, it has been revealed that digital documentation of modern architectural heritage, including interior elements, has a positive impact on 3 interrelated areas: cultural sustainability, educational activities, and touristic popularity. In the article titled Re-Architecture of Existing Building Stock with Sustainable Approach, the analysis of the city of Izmir, the distribution of the existing building stock in the city of Izmir that should be reconsidered and enhanced in terms of socio-spatial improvements, functions of these existing building stocks and their potential for refunctioning were detected. Local governments' applications on this issue were examined on their sites. The news related to the urban transformation and recruitment that took place in the media was analyzed, also by putting emphasis on the important examples on sustainability and ecological approach in the world. Criteria were set which were needed to be considered while retrieving the existing building stock both in Izmir and our country. The other conference proceeding titled Local Interpretations of Modern Housing in Post-Republican Period in Izmir, Turkey, aims to present local modernism efforts in terms of the multi-story apartment buildings of Izmir. The purpose of this paper is to emphasize the importance of apartment blocks, which have had an important role in the identity of the city, by revealing the architects and buildings of that period. These buildings, which both reflect international architectural language and local modernisms, are investigated in terms of their architectural style, plan layout, facade characteristics, material selection, and interior elements. Relationships and synthesis between international modernism and local culture searched through analyzing pioneering apartment blocks constructed between 1950 and 1980 in this city. Our book chapter titled Documenting Modern Interiors with Digital Technologies, Mid-Century Apartment Buildings in Izmir, contributes to documenting and conserving modern architectural heritage by focusing on residential interiors with the support of digital technologies. This chapter examines how a database was prepared for apartment buildings of significant value in Izmir, Turkey, dating from 1950 to 1980. This chapter explains in detail how the digital documentation of the significant architectural and interior features of the selected residences was integrated in terms of the e-heritage concept. The other book chapter, titled The Importance of Urban Regeneration in Cities' Identity, Industrial Heritage Potentials of Izmir, focuses on the potentials of industrial buildings in terms of city identity. It also emphasizes the contribution of the concept of co-living to the sociocultural sustainability of society and the importance of creating the awareness in the urban regeneration process. In the proceeding titled Eco-Cultural System Planning of the Existing Building Stock, the analysis of the city of Izmir, the existing building stock of Izmir that needed to be enhanced in social and cultural terms were analyzed. Through this analysis, the effect of individuals, the management system, and the social morals over the social sustainability were mentioned. The proceeding, titled Revitalization of Kemeraltı Historic City Center, studies and documents the Kemeraltı region. Izmir's old commercial and cultural center is now faced with a variety of problems and has been taken as the case study area. The experiences of Kemeraltı are explained, as well as some national and international examples. In this proceeding, titled Rethinking on the Transformation of Izmir Harbor District, the building stock existed at the harbor region was analyzed from the viewpoint of their location at the city, their interaction with each other by examining how they can be readapted by suited up into today's conditions. And it was also analyzed to develop strategies on how these structures can serve to the needs of the city with proper different functions. The conference proceedings, titled Türkiye'de modern iç mekanı konut banyoları üzerinden okumak, İzmir Karşıyaka apartmanları, aims to develop the existing knowledge on modern residential bathrooms and analyze the effects of modernism on social life through selected bathrooms. In this direction, the architectural features, modernist approach, and local values of the bathrooms in the 3 apartment buildings, which are the representatives of the modern residential life of Karşıyaka in Donanmacı district, were revealed. This interpretation includes the analysis of the location of the bathrooms in the floor plans, the layout of the bathrooms, bathroom accessories, storage units, floor and wall ceramics, fixtures, lighting elements, and doors, windows. The other conference proceeding, titled Modern İç Mekanın konut yapılarındaki yansımaları, Ferah Apartmanı, Karşıyaka, İzmir, focuses to show the importance of the chosen residential building in terms of urban memory and the reveal and analyze the original elements of the plan organization, kitchen and bathroom design elements, furniture designs, and material selection that reflect the characteristic features of the period. The book chapter, titled Sociocultural Sustainability, the Case of Izmir Industrial Heritage in the Context of Interior Architecture, aims to review the refunctionalization of Izmir's cultural heritage on the scale of interior architecture by considering the connection of this issue with sociocultural sustainability. As a case study, interior design student projects within the context of cultural heritage have been selected. Refunctionalization of the industrial buildings in the same area, rear port of Izmir, was evaluated in terms of sociocultural sustainability, which was studied in different years in the undergraduate and graduate project studios of Yaşar University. The book chapter, titled An Evaluation of the Modern Housing Heritage in Izmir, 1950-1980, aims to analyze the modern housing stock constructed between 1950 and 1980 in terms of architectural design and interiors. The study aims not only to document modern housing heritage, but also to analyze the 20th century non-canonical examples in Izmir, Turkey. Along with this study, which aims to analyze the civil architecture products as architectural cultural objects, more detailed knowledge on housing policy, architectural and interior details are achieved. After analyzing the effects of these transformations in the political, social, and economic life in Izmir in 1950 and 80, some significant values of case apartment blocks were determined. The article titled İzmir konutlarında apartmanlaşma süreci konak bölgesi örnekleri aims to reveal the transformations experienced in the urban fabric of Izmir in the historical process and the modernization in housing design. It focuses on apartment buildings examples from İzmir Konak. While these buildings give us information about the cultural, social, technological, or economic approach of the society, they also provide important details about the architectural language and attitude, housing practices, and modern housing culture. Although this project is specific to apartment buildings in Karşıyaka, Izmir, we include different building types within the scope of modern heritage spread around Izmir from a broad perspective in our research. In this context, we try to participate in the Docomomo Turkey poster presentations every year with different building types. The main aim is to focus on the undocumented examples of 20th century Turkish architecture and bring them to the literature. So it's very important to document the structures that can be evaluated within the scope of cultural heritage without being destroyed, and to be able to share them with researchers in the discussion environment. Along with the prepared poster and oral presentation, detailed information of the structures discussed is documented and can be transferred to large audiences. And the data obtained during and as a result of this research project contribute to the development and renewal of the content of the courses, including in the undergraduate and graduate curriculum of Yaşar University, Interior Architecture and Environmental Design Department. It's thought that the project that will contribute to both the education of Yaşar University Faculty of Architecture students and the enrichment of the content of other universities' courses on this subject in terms of educational material and creating a new method. In connection with this subject at Yaşar University, there are elective courses, including one undergraduate and 2 graduate. Within the scope of these courses, various readings and researches are made and discussions about housing culture are carried out. In addition to theoretical knowledge, students are asked to document the architectural heritage of Izmir. The urban architectural and interior design features of Izmir are transferred to digital media in 2 and 3D dimensional ways. Students ensure that transforming or lost values are researched, analyzed, rediscovered, and documented. Before this project was started, a website was created in connection with the project subject within the scope of 2 graduate courses in 2017 and 18. In this slide, you can see some screenshots from this website. As a research method, different stages were completed, such as analysis of 3 selected buildings, transferring them to digital environment, and conducting oral interviews. And various master's theses were completed before and during the project. Within the scope of this thesis titled Facade as Urban, Architectural and Interior Element, Interpretation of Tangible and Intangible Values in Izmir Karşıyaka Apartment Blocks between the period of 1950 and 80, the modernism period of Turkish architecture history has been read through residential facades that contain information about the society, region, period, lifestyle, social, cultural, political, economic values, and architectural approach. In this context, to be able to analyze the residential facades from different aspects, 6 apartment blocks from Karşıyaka Donanmacı district were studied in detail, which have significant characteristics in terms of architectural and interior features. The research is also supported by analysis of tangible values obtained as a result of objective data, and the intangible values resulting from subjective interpretations, specially developed and proposed for residential facades. The proposed tangible and intangible values analysis provides a comprehensive evaluation on 6 housing facades selected from Izmir, Karşıyaka. And this thesis contributes documentation containing information, references, and hints on housing facades by investigating housing policy, design culture, and architectural and interior space developments in Izmir, Karşıyaka region. And in this other thesis titled Analysis of Modern Interiors, Karşıyaka Apartment Blocks 1950 and 1980, the aim is to research and document the interiors of apartment buildings in Karşıyaka, Izmir, and to evaluate them with the proposed modern housing heritage value system. In architecture histography, the documentation and conservation of modern movement heritage are restricted to a certain period or building group. In this context, residential buildings are neglected except for the buildings by well-known architects and iconic examples. However, the examination of residential buildings provides important clues about the transformation of urban patterns and daily life practices. Residential buildings reaching today are original examples conveying us the housing and domestic culture of the period. Plan layouts and interior space characteristics were revealed with the help of the archive documents of the selected apartment buildings projects. And on the other hand, the oral history methods based on interviews with occupants, former inhabitants, and researchers. Through these analyses, housing culture and daily life of the period are investigated, and it's aimed to contribute to architectural histography by revealing different actors in housing production and interpretation of the residential buildings as social objects. And the last thesis titled Documentation and Interpretation of Modern Housing Stock in Karşıyaka, Izmir, 1948-1965, aims to document and interpret samples of housing that completed their economic lives in Karşıyaka between the years 1948 and 1965. This is necessary in order to maintain a continuous history of architecture and design, which is a significant ingredient of our cultural and social life. This thesis evaluates possibilities of documenting and interpreting components of Turkish architecture, interior, and industrial design in order to save their legacy. And this project was also published in various local newspapers and reached the citizens of the city. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Gülnur Hocam, Eda Hocam, and Gizem Hocam. It was a delightful presentation for us, and actually I am familiar with some of the publications because I was just following you. It seems like I'm stalking, but I have just, I was very curious, so I had tried to follow the publications, but I realized now that I couldn't follow all of them. So, I mean, in that sense, congratulations. We really had seen many aspects here. So now I'm going to just ask if we have any questions about the presentation.
I have one, if you
Yes.
permit.
Sure, Maan Hocam.
Okay. Thank you. First of all, thanks for this really precious and valuable presentation. It was very interesting, evoking a certain period of the modern architecture in Turkey. You evoked a very interesting term, the modern heritage, because we know that heritage is reflected in history. And when we say history, this also reflects a period of time. For example, in certain country, for a building to be considered as historic, it needs to be. I mean, the age of the building is one of the main elements. Here, it's not. The age is not really the main element. My first question is, what is the final objective of this project? You mentioned or underlined 3 stages. One of them is documentation, and then analysis. After analysis, is there any objective beyond the analysis only, and then publication? Because I know that behind this it might be conservation of a certain period of the distinct architectural element in Turkey, like the modern architecture. This is the first question. The second question, the idea behind this documentation and analysis, those buildings were endangered or what? What is really inside you to do this? Because from other example, for example, buildings might be endangered, which means vote to the destruction, and then this period of time of history and architecture for sure will disappear under economic constraint, under change of social pattern, because also underlying the plans and interiors, which means reflecting a kind of social life who was during, I think, 50s and 70s in Turkey. So the urban memory was in danger. That's why you conduct this project, or just curiosity for. But I mean, I find very interesting terminology, modern heritage. This is really very interesting because we can interpret differently the heritage, not mainly represent only the history, the date of the building. It might represent distinct feature or distinct social pattern or distinct cultural pattern and something like that. Thank you so much. It was really very interesting for me.
Maybe I can start, then Eda, Gizem, and also Hande and Efsun can contribute the answer. The first one is the first one of the question was, as I remember, related with the why these buildings defined as modern heritage, as I understood, because they are in danger, as you said, and because of the urban transformation law, and after in earthquake in Izmir in 2020, and before these also, this time period is a little bit neglected, and between the owners and even in the architects or interior architects do not believe that they have some specific characteristics. And for example, one of my colleagues asked me, why you are studying these apartments? What is the reason behind that? What is the qualified characteristics of these apartments? I don't know. I don't think that there is no valuable thing in the architecture and interior characteristics of these buildings. So most of the people, as I said, even the designers and architects do not think that this is the heritage, this is the modern heritage, and there is a valuable characteristics in terms of architecture and interior characteristics. But when we started this project, and when we go into the interiors of the original interiors that has not been changed, started with the construction of the apartment, we found a lot of valuable things in terms of interior also, not also architecture. And as you see from the visuals, we found original materials, original details, furniture. And this is a very large issue, starting from the producers, continuing with the users' daily habits, and also the material culture in socio-cultural background of the society. All of these things can be read from these interiors and architectural attitude of these apartments. So if we believe that the history or the architectural or socio-cultural history has to be continue without any interruption within the years, we have to document all the intervals in the history, not only the canonical or canonic buildings produced by well-known architects and famous architects, but also the ordinary buildings, the civil buildings, which reflect the society's lifestyle in reality, how the people was lived in that period, in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, was so important to be able to understand the background of the architectural development or architectural sustainability, how we come to these days, and with these, which kind of phases we come across. So we found, as I say, a lot of unrevealed data from the interviews, also with the users and the architects relatives. They look at their archives and found a lot of photographs and documents related with these issues, and they also said that we didn't aware of that. We have a lot of things in our hands, and after you asked, we found these kind of documents from the archives. I found some drawings, original drawings of the architects from her daughter, Ziya Nebioğlu, for example. I interviewed with her daughter, Linda Nebioğlu. She looked at the older documents and gave me some documents, the original sketch drawings of your father. She also remembered this. I remember these from my child, but I didn't look at it after that time. So this is an awareness of the owners, users, and other people related with these buildings is so important, I think. And as I said in the beginning of the presentation, we have some criteria to select these buildings, not all the buildings that produced in that time. We looked at some certain criteria to, for example, produced by a well-known architect. The quality of the building is so important, and using contemporary construction technologies, and being original in terms of interior design characteristics. And we search for these original flats by searching a lot of people, asking my friends, and we found these original interiors. It was so hard because the interiors changed rapidly by the people, but luckily we found 1 or 2 flats in each apartment that kept in original manner. So we learned about the construction technology, furniture producers, material culture, and the other design issues from these original interiors also. And with the interview, we supported this information, and at the end we reached a very rich, how can we say, data related with the interior and the architectural characteristics of these apartments.
Okay.
And
Thank you. This is really an awareness raising project.
Maybe Eda can add something. I saw her
okay.
hand.
Sorry.
Thank you, Gülnur Hocam. I may add only one thing. Actually, in addition to natural disasters like earthquakes in Izmir, there's a rapid urban transformation and apartments started to be demolished under the urban regeneration, actually. And that's a critical point because Karşıyaka now is like a construction site. And even sometimes we miss some apartments and cannot photo them, cannot talk with the flat owners and miss the furniture. So that is the point that also makes the project very important.
Okay, good. Then you found that the project has really very interesting and distinct features to be conserved. This will bring us to my second question. Beyond analysis, did you take any initiative with the local authorities to raise their awareness about the importance of keeping this very period in the urban memory of the city? Because without enforcement, maybe law, regulations, or enforcement from the local authorities, these buildings might disappear in a certain period under the pressure of the economy. Because normally, when the land and the building take a different value, so they will be demolished. So did you take any initiative with the local authorities for the beyond research and analysis? Because this is a very important step, in fact.
Yeah, you are right. But as you know, it is too hard. Even in the registered buildings has not very well preserved. But these buildings, because these are the residential buildings and there are a lot of flat owners in one apartment. So these kind of things a little bit confusing in terms of the flat owners, because most of the owners even didn't want to be talked with us because they are afraid of being registered and not to have rights about demolishing their apartments and getting a new one in terms of urban law transformation law. So if we have these kind of initiatives related with the local authorities and no one, because this is a very can be a big problematic for us, because preserving the individual owners' flats, it's not very legal issue in that situation of these regulations, with these regulations. Maybe Hande and Efsun also know this period from the Kadıköy apartments. Is there any way Hande or Efsun maybe can give some...
Even the municipality archive doesn't help the academicians in that aspect. So, and when we just tried these kind of issues, I mean, at least you were a little bit lucky. You have just found the original interiors and some just had been volunteered to talk. Even, I mean, when we are taking some photos, I mean, most of the people think that that building is going to demolish and it's going to be because of us. So there's a very big misunderstanding in that context. I think, I mean, through social media, through internet, through news, I mean, we are always constantly trying to just create a general awareness maybe. But I mean, even the Dokuma International Committee didn't, I mean, achieve its goals yet. So in Turkey, it seems like we have a very long path because, I mean, still today, I mean, even if we talk with the responsible people who could be responsible, they are always, I mean, telling, for example, there are such kind of stories. They tell that, okay, this is a building from 1970s, then it's going to demolish in the earthquake. But, for example, a building from 1930s is being preserved. It is being registered. So why it cannot be demolished during an earthquake and why a 70s building is going to be definitely demolished. So there is a different kind of logical explanation. So far, we couldn't just handle it or solve it, but we are trying.
Yeah,
I'm not sure when, but
yeah, I'm talking from personal experience. 1 mile start with 1 step for sure, and we conduct a similar project for the city of Cairo and the city of Aleppo, and with the University of Cairo in 1999, and we succeeded in enforcing the local authorities in both countries to issue a regulation, because this is not a law really, regulation classifying those buildings as distinct buildings, and they are necessary for the urban memory of the city. So they are forbidden to be, or they were forbidden to be demolished. That's why I was asking if there's
which kind of buildings? Is there residential or public buildings?
different buildings were belonged to late Ottoman period, beginning of the colonial period in both countries, which means we're talking about end of 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century until like 1930,
Now,
1935.
who is the owner? Who is the legal owner?
No matter who's the owner. This is the memory of the city. This is the general
Yes, I know that,
interest.
but in the residential buildings, the multi-user issue is it's very problematic. Even in Izmir, maybe you know that the greater municipality building, the İzmir Büyükşehir Belediyesi, was demolished in nearly. They demolished it. We in Chamber of Architects and other Docomomo institutions was organized a lot of meetings, and they talk. They invited the civil engineer of the building. He is living in Izmir, and he talked about the constructional period and all the how can we say calculations, and the building must not be demolished. They talked, but they demolished. They even understand, or they didn't want to understand this kind of heritage issue.
I think the main problem is Gülnur Hocam. I mean, recently you have said that one of your colleagues even just told, I mean, what about this modern architectural heritage? Is there such a thing? So I think, so people, most of them, I mean, from different let's say parts of the world and also Turkey, they don't now quite accept that. So modern architecture from different eras do represent a part or a specific era or of the urban memory, and also it's valuable due to its characteristics or features in terms of both interior and exterior features. I think people just don't quite I mean accept it right now, so that's why maybe so we have that kind of a resistance to related with the late 20th century buildings mostly. So maybe if, I mean, when we are talking about a building from 1920s or 1930s, people are more willing to accept it as a part of a urban heritage. But
so why not the 50s, for example?
So they think that, so for example, for 1950s, there's a specific language, and people think that because of that specific language, some of the people think that it's boring. They have done the same thing, so they don't think that it's something that we appreciate. So, but if that building has some kind of an ornamentation on the facade, or if it has some kind of details, wooden details maybe, or if it has a let's say a lavish roof or deep overhangs maybe, then they think that it's something that we need to protect. So I think so there are some aesthetical canons of modern architecture and modern interior design, and they don't fully accept it right now. But I think by time it's going to change.
Yeah, you're right, because the resistance is always when a new thing. Man is an enemy of what he ignores. So if they ignore something, they will object and they will reject. This is normal. the first reaction is that. By means of this kind of project, by means of this kind of research, it might be an awareness raising, so-called learning by doing for at the beginning the local authorities, because we don't think that the local authorities are aware of everything. So they need to be aware about something. There's a danger that one day we will wake up and we will find no building that relate to this era. So this is our job as architects and planners to like shed a light on these kind of period with its distinct feature, because we found that there is really a distinct feature for this kind of architecture, and then start the journey. It's a long journey, I know, but I mean it's a journey.
We can take an appointment from Tunç Soyer, and maybe we can present this to Tunç Soyer in a near time.
Okay.
Thank you for your contribution, Maan Hocam.
Thank you. It was really very interesting subject for me. Thanks so much.
It had become a very fruitful discussion for us too. Thank you, Maan Hocam, for the question.
Okay.
Eda and Gizem, I think they will add something.
I want to add very short thing. Thank you, Maan Hocam, for your comments and questions. Actually, as architects and interior architects, we try our best, but we cannot do anything to keep them in architectural or interior scale. But before the demolishing, we try to save some furniture like chairs or something, or some details like door handles. Or even we took some floor finishes, or like from Ferah apartment, we bring the apartment name plaque before it demolishes. So at that level, it is the best we can do.
I also take some mosaic terrazzo tiles from one apartment. I took it in my home. My husband asked, "What are these?" I found from the apartment that demolished. I keep three of them as a memory. We have some.
Doing the same thing.
Because we can't find any more from this kind of pavement. If you're referring to the kind of pavement, this is disappeared. That's why it's really very precious now, very valuable.
In our school, our school is located in Bornova. In our near adjacent parcel, there was a industrial building, and when we decided also to document these kind of industrial buildings, because there is a huge transformation period in that area in Bornova also. They demolishing all the industrial buildings, and they created a new housing complex here. So Eda, Gizem, and me before the pandemic went to this area, because we heard that this building was demolished, and take all the releve and other documentation, and took the photographs, and also we collected all the laboratory things, all the glasses and other things, and we have a lot of laboratory materials that there is a kind of plant related with these analysis of some things in a laboratory, and we have a lot of things that these as a collector in our rooms now, Eda and me. Yes, Gizem, maybe you want to add something.
Yes, Hocam, I can add a very general point. Although this project is finished, it's still an ongoing process. We are still continuing our analysis. We can still discover some details from the buildings, and we can still make some comparisons. So that the main purpose was to bring these buildings to the literature with all their features like interiors, architectural elements, and furniture, and so on, without destroying or demolishing them.
Eda hocam is raising her hand.
Sorry, but I only want to add one more thing. Hande hocam, after you mentioned, I remember something. Actually, we are also trying to document the ceramic facade ornamentations actually in apartment buildings, specifically in Karşıyaka, Bostanlı, and that region. Unfortunately, it is impossible to actually protect them. So we try to contact with some ceramic artists. So it is the only thing that we can do in architectural scale in terms of facade. So it is one of the things I'm so sad about. Unfortunately, there is nothing we can do except taking photos and contacting with the designer. It is one of the losses actually we have from the demolishing of residential buildings.
This is really unfortunate, Eda hocam, but I mean, all the bad things happen to these ceramic or mosaic artworks. So far, we can just observe it. I believe Devrim Yücel has a question.
Yes, thank you. Some questions and some appreciations. First of all, it's a very deeply and detailed documentation, very good. I hope, I am sure that it is a very good teamwork. I only know one of the members, Gülnur. Gülnur also helped me during my master thesis in Middle East Technical University, which was a little bit similar to that type of documentation, actually. I was also working about the special organization changes in apartment type of houses in Ankara. You remember, Gülnur, huh?
A little bit remember.
But at that time, it was, yes, it was very difficult to visualize or to document these things in the digital media. And I remember that Gülnur helped me a lot. So it is time to thank for that as well. My question is about your team. Because the originality of that documentation seems to me focusing on interior spaces, especially by using interviews. So how many interior designers, or what about the proportion of interior designers in your team? Do you have any financial support or only an institutional support? The second question. And the third question is a kind of suggestion. Please share your interview notes as well. I don't know how, but it should be shared because many other disciplines can also read different things from that documentations. I mean, not only architects, interior designers, or measure of the cities or other authorities, whatever they are, you know, we know that they're not going to do anything, but the other generations from other fields are going to use these documentations, I am sure. So I think the interviews should also be shared somehow. Thank you.
Thank you, Devrim. I couldn't remember exactly your thesis because it was a lot of years ago. But after you said a little bit, I am remembering. For the team means the project team, I think. First, you're asking.
Yes, project team.
In the project team, I am the coordinator, and Eda, Gizem, and we have one more researcher from our school, İrem Deniz Akçam. She's a research assistant, and we have scholarship students from graduate and undergraduate levels, and also we have advisors. And advisors is so important, especially Renin. You know Renin, my colleague. also read it on. She was born in Karşıyaka and she knows a lot of people from Karşıyaka, and she has a very good network, and she helped us so much to be able to find people, to be able to find these original flats, and to make these interviews possible. So we found people via Renin, and day by day, after the interviews was completed, we found the other one that knows the others. So this issue is developing like that, and the going into the to be able to get permission from the flat owners was too hard, and because of this network, it might be possible for us. And after the pandemic, most of the interviews was in online, but the ones the older ones, it is impossible to make these online issues, and some of the program was interrupted, but and you also asked the interior designers in the interviews or in the team, are you asking?
No, in the team. I mean, what is the proportion? Generally, the architects are dealing with interior.
Yes. Here, Eda and Gizem are interior designers. İrem, industrial. What was the graduation of İrem, Eda?
Yes, hocam, she's industrial designer. I just calculated it from our website. We have 4 architects, 6 interior architects, 1 industrial designer, İrem, and we have Emrecan Esenap, who is şehir plancısı, and that's all.
Actually, this is very nice. I mean, it sounds very nice, a kind of multidisciplinary type of project. It is also very valuable now. Thank you very much. What about the financial support?
Yes, I will mention it. The financial part, it is a BAU project. So the school, the Yaşar University Proje Destek Ofisi, Project Support Office was supported this. We wrote the project as a scientific project, and after their approval, we give them a very detailed project form by mentioning all the details, the budget, the pockets, the work pockets, and the scholarship payments, and all the other expenses related with the equipment and the things that we need during the project. After their approval, they require us some interval presentations and some interval reports that to be able to show the project is going very well or not, what we achieved or what cannot be achieved. So this project was supported by Yaşar University.
Did you record the interviews?
Yes. The online ones and the face-to-face also, we recorded all the things, and we also made it as a Word document after transcription. And as Gizem said, the project is still going on. In the paper, it is finished, but we are studying on it. So we are making some studies in terms of publication, and we are now using these interviews in different publications. Because of that, we didn't publish all the things in one time, but in the publications and in other outputs, we will make it clear with all the details. But for example, in the bathroom paper in Docomomo, we used some interviews related with the bathroom issue. In other publication, we need some information about the interviews on the certain issue. So this is a phase by phase. We are using all these information as a publication.
Gülnur Hocam, maybe I have missed, but when did you start this research? How long did it take you to put all these data together? Because we, I mean, me and Hande, we are also conducting a similar research in Istanbul, Kadıköy region, as you already know. We know that it is really very hard to somehow find out the data, the drawings, maybe some photos, images. We are really having a hard time to have this documentation part in our research. So I wonder, for these around 20 apartments, right?
Not 20. We selected 9 apartment buildings.
9 of them. Okay. So in the website,
in the project,
the list of the apartments.
But we studied in all of the Izmir during the time before the project, after the project. But the project is mainly related with 9 apartment buildings, and we started in December 2019. And finished in January 2022, approximately 2 years, I think.
Yes, so we
Is
can
it correct,
understand
Eda?
that it's a really very long time for 9 buildings, right?
Yeah,
It's
9 buildings,
easy.
but because of the pandemic, also we need extra time, and we plan to finish earlier. But this pandemic issue is very hard for us to be able to make interviews, taking photographs, get into the flats. So this is interrupt. This interruption also affected the timeline of the project.
Yes, of course. So it is also somehow annoying our research as well. I also wonder, I understood that you tried to find out the original interiors in the apartments, right?
Yes.
For example, is it possible to compare somehow the non-original ones and the originals? What kind of, yeah, if there is a differentiation, a transformation in the interior organization during time, for example, are there households that change the interior? Is there a need to transform the apartment, for example? Did you see something like this?
We didn't go into the changed or transformed interiors, but we know that the interiors that we select is original from the interviews, and after taking photographs, and we see a lot of things as they are original built, and they told, or they give some documents related with the first years of the apartment building. So we learned all of these information from the owners of the building, but we didn't go into the other flats in the building, because we only related with the original ones, and this is another phase of the, or another aspect. Maybe
yes,
it
because
can be,
I always wonder about how people change the apartments in time. That's why I'm asking.
Maybe we can look at it, but we only completed this part in a, because it's a very big issue to make this documentation, taking permissions, blah blah something, and we have also other responsibilities in the school. So
Definitely, hocam. Definitely.
they don't give us any extra time for the research. We will do everything in the same time. So we only completed this part, but this aspect is very important, as you say. If we have any possibilities, we can also continue this issue like that. Thank you for this contribution, Efsun hocam.
You're welcome. Thank you, Gülnur hocam, for the presentation. Thank you, Gizem, Eda hocam.
Thank you, hocalarım. I also have, I'm just curious about something. So in Kadıköy region, I mean, when Efsun and I just checked the buildings that you just made a search about. So there are many common features between the buildings in Izmir and also even in Kadıköy. And also again in Istanbul, for example, in Bakırköy or in such regions, we can see many similarities too. So I have just seen one of the publications like sharing global values in modern architecture. It was something like that, I believe. And it seems like also in the cities like Izmir and Istanbul, it seems like there are many similarities too. I mean, now I can see it. It just makes me wonder that if, for example, it happens in maybe other cities of Turkey. So it seems like there's a very common language, maybe. I am just really curious about it when I had seen the presentation and when I just considered the ones that we have found. So at the end, I now think that modernism had really affected many parts of the world, and it really did. Yeah, I think
yes,
that's
in that publication, we try to find some common aspects of the local and international modernities and how these international modernity affected the local architects and local architecture characteristic. And we found a lot of things, and it is a very large, it needs very large, how can we say, survey, and to be able to find these kind of common issues. And also, as you said, we have to look at the other cities in Turkey, Istanbul, Ankara, and in the same period. Maybe we can we can study together in one research to be able to combine the Istanbul and Izmir apartments together.
It would be very nice. Eda hocam is raising her hand.
Thank you, Hande hocam. Actually, when we are writing our final report, when we are completing our BAU project, also our further researches, if we have any plan, the rectorship asked about if you have any further plans or if you want to continue your research project. And what we mention in the report is that we may actually expand our study in the other typologies in Izmir, so we can keep the same region, or we can keep the same typology like residential interiors, like try to decode the similar characteristics in Aegean, like Muğla, Denizli, or like close actually cities or neighborhoods. Actually, that's what we are planning, but we need a bit of time, I guess.
Yes,
Definitely.
we have these kind of big plans in our mind.
I hope we can achieve, I mean, our goals in that aspect when we have the time. So thank you again for this interesting and delightful presentation. It was a really big pleasure for us to host you here. So maybe I can just end this session, but before ending that session, so we have actually a tradition in ArchiDesign talks at Bahçeşehir University Faculty of Architecture and Design. We actually make a donation in your name to SAY Foundation, and SAY Foundation is aiming to help underprivileged children for equality and education. So this is something, I mean, a small tradition that we do here. Again, thank you very much for your contribution. It was really a very good experience for all of us, I believe, and we have learned a lot, and we have just seen what kind of techniques in terms of methodology we can use, and I mean, we had seen a teamwork and what could it I mean, lead to. So thank you again, hocalarım.
Thank you, Hande hocam. It's a very pleasure to be with you. Thank you for the very valuable donation also.
Hande hocam, the donation can be the best output of that project.
Yeah.
Thank you, hocalarım, again, and thank you, dear guests, for being here. So we wish everyone a nice evening. So
Thank
see you.
you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you hocam.
Bye-bye.
Good
See
evening.
you.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye.